Now going back to our Drupal website, let's go back to the core of the Drupal site. So this is the core file system of the Drupal site. So you see the index.php here, you see the sites folder here. What I typically do, and what I have most people do, is in the core just create a new folder and call it player. The reason why I do this is it's typically good for multi-site configurations. When you have a bunch of websites, you want to be able to just update a single player and it updates all of them instead of having to go into all the multi-sites and updating them. So now that I have a player folder, I'm just going to double click on that. And now I'm going to double click on this dashPlayer here. I'm just going to select everything. And then once you selected everything, you're just going to drag and put that into the player folder. Now this dashPlayer.swift, that is the player. That is the Swift player. And typically, whenever you get an update, typically this is the only thing you need to update is the player. You might in later revisions might need to update skins, but I will go over all that in another tutorial. The one thing that I do want us to concentrate on is the config directory. So inside the player directory, you're going to see a config directory. Double click on that, and then you'll see another file called -config. This is a very, very important file, and a lot of people miss it, and it causes issues. So let's go ahead and take this moment to set this file up. The very first thing that we're going to do is you see a bunch of params, XML, you see a license if you want to get rid of the logo, but then you also see gateway, API key, base URLs, and then flash vars. The very first thing, since we've already created it, let's go ahead and just fill in the API key. So let's go back to our website. Here's where we created the API key. So I'm just going to double click on that. I'm going to hit Control-C to save, to copy it. And then in between the XML, you're going to delete this comment, which that's what this comment is, so that it looks like this. And then you're just going to paste that API key in there so that it looks like that. The second thing that we're going to do is take care of this gateway. The gateway can be found pretty easily. And all you do to find the gateway is you go into the Administer Services section, but you can just click Browse. Another way to get here is if you click on Administer and then click on the Services link over here on the right. It's the same place. But what this is going to do is provide you with a link to the AMF PHP server. This is the gateway. So if you click on this link, it should bring you up to this page, which basically just tells you that the AMF gateway is installed correctly. The cool thing here is you can just go up to the URL up here and copy it, and then just paste that in the gateway of the -config file, just like so. The base URL is going to basically be the gateway without the whole services and AMF PHP thing. Just the rule of thumb here, the base URL is the path that you go to the home page. So if I click on here, here's the home page, localhost screencast. Of course, without the leading /. So no leading / HTTP localhost screencast. The next thing that I typically like for people to do is to go ahead and delete this comment right here and to set up another special flash var. And this is going to basically tell the player what the Drupal version is. Whenever I originally wrote this, I did not have to do this because the services were just the same between Drupal 5 and Drupal 6. However, with the latest updates of services, they kind of skewed between Drupal 5 and Drupal 6, and I had to add a method for the player to query the Drupal site to find out its Drupal version. Well, to basically keep the player from not having to query the server for the Drupal version, you can imply it here by just typing in Drupal version close bracket 6, Drupal version, just like so. So whenever you're done, your file should look like the following, and I can zoom in so that you can see it. This is what your -config should pretty much look like. You should have the gateway installed, you should have the API key set up, the base URL, and then the flash vars that says Drupal 6, if you're using Drupal 6, of course. So once we're done doing this, it's real important to save that file and then close it. So now that we're done setting up the -config file, there's one other thing that we need to do, and that is to provide the path to the player. We do that by clicking on the Administer section and then go down to the dashPlayer settings and then click on that link. Here you will see that it's trying to look for the player in the site's default files folder. This is the default location, but since we added it to the player folder previously, we're going to need to provide that here. A good way to test this, and I actually recommend people do this, is just to test it by copying that location, opening a new tab, and then just pasting it in the URL and hit enter. If the dashPlayer loads, then you're good to go. So let's make sure we save that configuration. Okay, so now that we are finished completely configuring the Dash Media Player, our next tutorial is going to actually add content so that we can add videos to the Dash Media Player. So stay tuned.